2014 so far has been a very, very good year for superhero movies. Two movies, Captain America: The Winter Soldier and X-Men: Days of Future Past, have been two of the best movies in the genre, and Amazing Spider-Man 2 was pretty good, and Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out later, and I expect it to be absolutely amazing. But a lot of times, superhero movies are really bad. Other times they're really good. They're one of the genres that can most easily just crisscross over the line, being terrible, decent, horrible, awful, average, okay. Like, they can be absolutely anywhere on those lines. Lately, they've been kind of finding their stride, but also kind of getting repetitive. But anyway, I really like superhero movies. I really love superheroes, and I've seen pretty much every major superhero movie, and so I've assembled a list of the top 10 superhero movies of all time. I have 5 honorable mentions, 5 dishonorable mentions, and one rule, one per franchise, but not necessarily per character. If a certain character's series is rebooted or kind of just put at in a new light, I consider that a different franchise. You'll see what I mean. And let us begin. At number 10, we have a dark horse, Kick-Ass, the very unconventional superhero movie, kind of more of a comedy, which stars Aaron Taylor Johnson, Chloe Grace Moretz, Nicolas Cage as kind of this ragtag group of heroes, one of which has no idea what he's doing, and 2 of which have a very good idea of what they're doing, and their stand against organized crime. It's funny, has some great action scenes, and it's pretty underrated in my opinion. The sequel was decent, not as good as the first one, but I still enjoyed it, but Kick-Ass 1 was really fun, and I had a great time watching it. At number 9, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. The second installment in the Captain America series improved substantially over the first one, bringing in an amazing villain in the form of the Winter Soldier with some great twists. And what really managed to be great about this one is that it kind of switched the genre around. Instead of just being the typical superhero movie in which they beat up, kind of just quip at each other, this was more of like a spy movie, the 70s conspiracy, and it was really, really cool. It worked out really well, and it was a great blend between both that old genre and the modern superhero that we have. At number 8, we have X2, X-Men United, by far the best installment in the original trilogy. And this movie really kind of shows the different balances between the mutant world. There's the X-Men, the good mutants, the Xavier School. Then there's the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants with Magneto. And there's the government. And there's kind of just a lot of lines that are shaky, blurry. You don't know who's with who. There's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of great characters, especially Nightcrawler, who was only in this one, even though he was one of the best performances in the entire series. And it was really refreshing and a really great movie. At number 7, we have another second installment, another which was the best, Spider-Man 2, from the original Spider-Man trilogy, this time chronicling the struggle with Peter Parker against Dr. Octopus, and a lot of interesting sequences, especially when Peter loses his powers for a large portion of the movie. And this movie really brought together everything that's great about Spider-Man. The only thing that was missing was Spider-Man with a little bit more of a sense of humor, but nonetheless, Dr. Octopus was a great villain. There's a great story arc with Harry Osborn, good with Mary Jane. Everything really came together perfectly, and this is kind of the model for the Spider-Man movie that all the other ones have been trying to reach since then. At number 6, the most modern of these, is X-Men: Days of Future Past. I consider this in a different franchise, as this is more in the X-Men First Class storyline, which I consider a reboot. I don't care if you disagree, this is my list. This really brought together the best of both worlds, literally, by reuniting the old cast and the new cast. And there were a lot of new villains, like Warpath, Blink. Blink's combat with the portals were amazing. Wolverine interacting with the amazing performances by Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy. A great turn of Quicksilver by Evan Peters. Everything worked perfectly. The time travel made sense. There were a few plot holes, but it fixed the X-Men franchise, and Bryan Singer's return was triumphant. At number 5, and you might be surprised that it's not higher up than this, Iron Man. Iron Man, you can probably thank this movie for the slew of movies that have come out since then. This ignited Marvel's plans that eventually moved towards the Avengers and are now moving towards Avengers 2. It just started this push, and it makes sense. It was really, really great. It brought a little light to a lesser known character. Even though he's huge in the comics, he wasn't really known outside of people who don't read the comics. He was really, really cool. Robert Downey Jr. played Tony Stark flawlessly, and it worked out so well in the end with a great mix of humor and action. At number 4, a movie you probably weren't thinking of, but I know you're going to agree with me. The Incredibles, one of Pixar's best and maybe even their most underrated movie, tells the story of this family of superheroes after the superheroes have fallen out of public favor and they're just kind of retired. This movie is hilarious. It has some great action, just a lot of great family dynamics. I really can't describe what's so good about this movie. Director Brad Bird really manages to craft this whole universe really well. When you feel the events, you know, like the superheroes, they're just gone, and you feel bad for them. You feel bad for Mr. Incredible, and he just longs to be back in the spotlight, and it's great. At number 3, this might be a little controversial. I love this movie. A lot of people hated it. Most people thought it was just kind of okay. I absolutely loved Watchmen. Now, a lot of people said it didn't really live up to the graphic novel. A lot of people thought it was a little too long, a little overblown. I thought it was absolutely perfect and that the audience just necessarily wasn't expecting what they were getting. And this was more in the form of an epic than a superhero action movie. This was more kind of saying, what would the world actually be like with superheroes, especially during the Cold War, this period of time. There's 2 opening scenes back to back that are 2 of my favorite scenes in all of movie history, with the comedian being killed and the opening credits that show how the world would have actually changed from World War II to the 1980s if superheroes had existed. The entire movie, I think, is amazing, with a great soundtrack, some great acting, and honestly, I think you need to give this movie a second chance. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. At number 2, I have one of the ultimate summer movies, The Avengers. Joss Whedon did the impossible in bringing together 6 larger-than-life heroes and making them all share the spotlight, and it worked off better than anyone could have possibly imagined. Worked out is what I meant to say. The way the heroes interacted, fought, argued, worked together, everything about it felt so real. All the characters managed to be fully fleshed out while completely sharing the spotlight, along with a great villain performance by Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Everything worked perfectly. It was so much fun to watch. Well, I'm not saying it was a really deep movie, but it had a little more depth than a lot of superhero movies do. It was great, and I cannot wait for Avengers 2. Before we get to number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. And now, some dishonorable mentions. At number 1, you probably saw this coming, The Dark Knight. The superhero movie that kind of transcended superhero movies and became something completely different. Christopher Nolan completely changed the way that we look at Batman. He completely changed the way we look at any superhero. He made us take this character who a lot of people think is silly maybe. If you even look at Tim Burton's version, he was silly. Adam West's version was really silly. And he made him take him seriously. He made him dark, gritty, and it worked. And Heath Ledger's performance as a Joker goes down in history as one of the best performances in any movie of all time. He is scary, and he is the perfect character foil to Batman. It works so well. Everything about The Dark Knight works fantastically, and the rest of the trilogy as well, but as I said in the beginning, I can only pick one per franchise. This was the best, and it was amazing. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. I'll see you next time.